It's the state of the dungeon. It's a video that Rob does about his games. Yeah! Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Rob here in my basement lair and here to deliver another State of the Dungeon address. This is for the game that took place on the 5th of June, 2020. The game Mighty Protectors, Villains and Vigilantes 3. This entire thing was a night of combat and some tactics. The group started out assaulting the cruiser that is, again, the property of this mysterious Black Book group that knows about supers and tries to apprehend them. So, the group is tasked currently trying to capture one person who Lord Warbridge had originally tried to get to his side, but they were snatched out from underneath him. So they were there to get him. In the process, giving a black eye to this Black Books organization. So, the assault took place as the assault was actually the form of bulwark, flying straight at the defensive tower with the radar and defensive guns, and going dense and slamming into it, only to find out that there was a force field protecting it, which blunted his assault. He did damage the tower a little bit, which caused the guns to actually open up on their own deck and damage their ship, but that also meant that Bulwark slid down the tower and ended up on the deck. A little dazed, but not too much the worse for wear. Unfortunately for him, on the deck are a whole bunch of these troops. The black-clad troops, a little bit slimmed down on the armor part. They're, more of the naval version. But they all have submachine guns, which can be kind of nasty. Bulwark, of course, at this point had his density up, and he was prepared to take some amounts of punishment. But at the same time, the boat that had brought them there, driven by chauffeur, had pulled up, and at this time, Muscles had gotten onto the deck, as had Rook. Ghost had been flying around and doing intel. She had already followed Bulwark up to his assault on the tower, came back to tell him that, well, he had damaged the tower but didn't smash it. And then she went into the ship by going underneath where the force field surrounding the hull of the ship didn't penetrate through. She went up around the inside of the ship, kind of getting the layout, and discovered that there's an entire other ship designed to be able to escape, with the prow of the larger craft breaking apart so that the prison with these the people inside of it could be shuttled off if that was necessary. So she spoiled my surprise. On the other hand, the opposition force didn't know that she could do that, so, it's perfectly justifiable. So she comes back up and lets them know that there's that interior ship, and they're going to have to hurry, because if it takes off, they're going to have a heck of a time catching up to it. So, at this point, the groups are two functionally different groups. So we're going to take this from one side's perspective to another. With Bulwark, his major problem was that he by himself is able to soak a great deal of damage, but he is considerably stronger in in his dense form, but enough people can mob him down, and he was tackled by 5 of these soldiers and effectively pinned. Even though he was tremendously strong, when one strong, trained soldier is just responsible for pinning one arm down, even if you are somewhat stronger by superpowers, he still wasn't able to break free, repeatedly. A captain at one point tried to shoot him in the head with his sidearm, 45 caliber pistol, and wounded him. Then another one was kneeling on his midsection when he was on the ground and pinned, put the gun someplace delicate, pulled the trigger, and that time the damage wasn't so impressive, and the bullet just flattened against Bulwark's body, and the guys freaked out at that, because you get shot down there, and you feel it. Bulwark was just whatever. So he was having a tough time getting through just these goons. He had smashed what he thought was some sort of control center, but it really was just their Xbox. And he was in a position where it wasn't quite sure if he was going to be able to get out, or maybe they were going to still be able to gun him down and eventually chip through his defenses. Well, at this point, Sentinel came in on the scene from the deck. He was like, well, gotta watch out for Bulwark. So he went over and he, with his repulsor blast, started helping to clear people off, and his force punching ability. To the point eventually where the remaining goons, after they took the captain down who had shot Takeshi, the remaining goons ran deeper into the ship and they quickly slammed the bulkhead door shut and locked it. That basically, Sentinel was like, okay, you've got this from now on. So he went back to the other group. Switch back over to the other group. There's still 20-some goons on the ship. So, of course, Muscles being the biggest threat, he turns and he's like, okay, well, I'm going to brace so they shoot me. I'll use my absorption power. And he did. And he absorbed till the point where his strength was well over 50. Just incredible power. He took a little bit of damage from that, but nothing too serious. So now he is at the point where he can lift over 400 tons. He is that strong. And also, he's got the stolen power for about 5 minutes. The entire rest of the night is less than 5 minutes from the point he'd been shot. So he is still at that strength. So the goons had shot him, and also he was not happy to find out that an energy bolt came down from above. There's a man with an energy rifle up there who shot at him. Again, up to this point, nobody... Yeah, they found out they had force fields on the ship, but this energy weapon was also kind of out there. This was something he would not be able to absorb. So his idea for dealing with the sniper was to walk over. The guy was up in a tower on the command tower, at the forefront of the ship. And he moved up, and his whole thing was, I'm going to reach over, grab the tower, lift it up, rip it out of the mooring on the ship, and just smash it down. Z does not have a great deal of care for the well-being of his foes. However, he's so strong that he grabbed the tower and just went crunch, ripping the plates off of the actual body of the base of the tower, and just snap. He ended up with a handful of twisted metal, which didn't help him. And then he got drilled from behind by concentrated submachine gun fire, and is now hurt. The good news is the stolen strength gives him more hit points. So he is more durable for the time being. But he is also badly wounded from lots and lots of small arms fire. Rook attempted to help as much as he could, but nobody was really worried about him when you have Muscles there, who is now standing about 12 feet tall. A big 12-foot tall black man with about as much muscle as you can pack onto a human frame is frightening to these guys, and they were trying to take him down. Well, on his second go, Muscles does manage to get the supporting beams and grabs and rips, and he does bring the tower crashing down. Unfortunately, on top of himself. Rook was not pinned by this, but he did bring it down on several troops who probably won't be well off after that. Although it sounds like there's a few that are pinned underneath and calling for help, but that's not really their concern at the moment. Rook comes jogging up and he's like, okay, where do we go? They go into the room through the wall that he had just sheared, and it was a twisted mess. He finally decided it was a barracks for people who were doing topside duty. And he just bent down, grabbed the floor, and ripped it open so they could go down and in. At this point, they had found out that there's that other ship that they're desperately trying to get to at a pretty good time. So they dropped down into that. At this point, Takeshi, Bulwark, and Sentinel had finished their fracas. Sentinel was going to go deeper into the ship, but the door was stuck. So Sentinel blasted the door with his repulsor powers and knocked it off its hinge. They were able to go in, and they found, again, a very quick fight. Nothing too serious at all. And when they penetrated into the ship itself, they found a couple of lab geeks who were basically technicians taking care of all of these strange systems that are, very high-tech. And Sentinel looked around. He found one that mentioned the prison monitors. He saw some of the prisoners and what was going on. And he's like, I gotta go back to the other guys. So Bulwark said, well, I'm in no danger anymore. I just have these two goons, and I'm going to get some information out of them. So Sentinel took off and rejoined the others. At this point, Ghost gets back to the ship, to the boat that, I remember all these names. Chauffeur was still at, preparing to join the rest of the guys when all of a sudden, screaming around the side of the ship is a guy in a jetpack, and he hit the ship with a sonic blast, which rocked them pretty hard. The boat was damaged. Turned out Chauffeur dropped to the ground bleeding from his ears. Fortunately for her, Psy Ghost had made the best of her forethought and agility. It dodged the worst of it. Turned around, used a power blast on the goon, and just smashed him. Badly injured him. He skipped off the water a few times. She was nice enough to go over, get him out of the water before he drowned, put him on their boat, made sure that Chauffeur was going to be all right. He's just rocked pretty hard. And she flew off to join the rest of the group. Now at this point, Muscles and Rook were making pretty good speed. What are metal doors to a guy who is that strong? They dropped down into a galley, avoiding the super hot stove. I was expecting somebody to fall onto the super hot stove and take some energy damage, but they didn't. And they went to the officer's mess, and they just ripped the floor open there, dropped down. This was a thing. They didn't respect the internal structure of the ship at all. Eventually, they found themselves in an armory, and they found a special workshop where they had some of these really high-tech gadgets that really far beyond the technology of the people, of today. Ray guns and specialist grenades of all different weird designs. So the group, of course, Rook is like, oh yeah, he took the biggest one. They found a staircase going down, and Muscles went down there, only to find out that there were 2 laser turrets sweeping that area, and he got drilled with that. Turns out they fire invisible lasers, microwave laser. That wasn't good for him. He didn't like that. Didn't do much damage, though. His armor absorbed some, but his armor also was melted from that attack. He fell back a bit, and as a result, Rook took one of his grenades, threw it down there. Bang! Loud flash. They looked down, and it had created bubbles. Fortunately, Rook was also caught in one of those bubbles. So, Z took him down, and the bubble was popped by a laser, and Z smashed one of the... No. Oh, I believe Rook actually fried one of the lasers. And Z decided he was going to try to run and avoid being shot anymore. So he turns and he runs down a side hall from that room. Basically, it was a T-intersection giving the lasers a good view of anybody coming down the stairs. And off to either side at the far end of that room are wide corridors leading down. No cover, by the way. So while Z is pounding it down this hallway, the laser is turning and tracking him until it got... Rook finally, I believe, took it out. Muscles is running down, and all of a sudden door opens, and a large guy in augmented armor comes out. The armor is big, tough, but it looks like it also is augmenting his personal strength. And he comes out and smashes his fist together, and energy arcs off of them. Mr. Z sees that, balls up his fist, swing, punches the guy into the wall, which hurts him quite a bit. Turns out the armor is good, but not that good. And he kind of peels himself over, and Z comes up and smashes him into the ground. Again, kind of looking like he was going for a kill. Hard to say. But they quickly find out as the rest of the team comes around. And eventually, Bulwark makes the 2 techs take him to a room where, there's a long hall going through the center of the room into the main mess for the men. And for the most part, there's really not much of a fight to go on. Most of the fighting was the soldiers up on top, the automated defenses, which they had skirted. But he was warned that up ahead there was a ladder going down to the lower ends of the ship, and there was a laser grid, invisible again. So he was advised to take the coat and see where the coat would get vaporized and then know where the lasers were. It was a nice gesture. Especially when he was really convinced to be on the side of Team Bulwark when Bulwark opened up a door and the guard behind it had a shotgun, shot badly, and didn't hit him, but he hit the other tack. So while Bulwark basically ignored the guy, because he's like, I'm protected, I've got my force field, I've got all my power going, he went over to the tack and he's like, look, save his life. And then he took out the guard. And he's like, okay. So, went through the mess and eventually met up with the rest of the group. So the group followed through the door where the sergeant in the powered armor came through. Again, I believe they helped themselves to a gun on the way through, or maybe some grenades. And came into the main security loadout room. The guards who were there weren't up to this fight, and they surrendered. They knew better than to try to take these guys on. And the group is like, okay, well, you know, if we try to go down there, they decide to launch the ship, this ship is going to sink. You'll want to get to topside as quickly as possible. And they're like, you know what? They're right. So they took off. So at this point, the group, this is at the end of the night, they are contemplating there's stairs, and then there's the hatch that goes down into the subship. They have to get down there quickly enough or somehow stop the outer ship from breaking off and disgorging this before they get a chance to get into it. Will they do it in time? Who knows? We'll have to reveal that at the next State of the Dungeon address. Thank you. I am Rob, and we'll see you next time.